Hi everyone. Thank you for that introduction, Pete. I'm just going to share my screen. So hopefully you guys will be able to see this.
Yep.
Can you see it?
Yeah, we can see
Great.
that.
Cool. Okay. Now I've got to work out how to also see my notes. And now I don't know if this is going to work actually. I've thought about it. Can you see my notes or not?
No, Emily, we can't.
No.
Okay,
you can.
that's good. Let me just see if I can go full screen again and then bring it up. Also, probably not. Oh well, we'll go with this. Anyway, yeah, so happy World Mental Health Day, everyone. Again, not too sure if that's the right word, but yeah, it's good to commemorate the day. As Pete was saying, I'm Emily. I'm co-owner of the Malt Mardle micropub, which is based in Norwich on Magdalen Street. We're a little micropub. And yeah, we opened in the summer of 2021. So since opening, there's definitely we've been through some ups and downs since opening the business. I previously did a talk for the Norfolk Business and IP Centre about starting our business, and during the talk I spoke frankly about the issues that I face with mental and physical health, and Pete has kindly asked me back to speak more about the challenges I face and also start a conversation with others, you guys, about how we cope with mental health, and especially how we do that while running a business or working in general. So I wanted to preface this talk with the acknowledgement of my privilege and how my experiences are obviously just one example of millions, if not billions, of people who go through mental health struggles at some point in their lives. I've been very fortunate to have the support of my family while going through mental health problems. I've also had the support of my partner financially to allow me to see a therapist for a year. Obviously not everyone is fortunate enough to have this support, so going to talk through some of the things I've learned over the last few years struggling with mental health, which helped me, but obviously those things are unique for everyone. So obviously what helps me might not help you, but a lot of what I'm saying, or pretty much all of what I'm going to be saying, is backed up by scientific evidence, and yeah, obviously take away from it what you want, what's helpful. And yeah, obviously be really good later maybe to discuss some things that you find helpful, some tips you have in terms of managing your mental health as well. So I'm going to skip a slide. Sorry, this is not the right way to do it, but we'll go with this. So yeah, I currently work in my business at the micropub part-time, and I'm mainly focused on marketing activities like our socials, building our website, running events, all those kind of bits, and other bits that I need to do within the business. But I started my career in a completely different area. So I went to Leeds University to study adult nursing in 2013, and I finished in 2016. So by my second year, I absolutely loved it. Although probably during this period, I burnt myself out. So by the third year, I wasn't so sure if I was doing the right thing, if I was, heading in the right direction, doing the right career. This is when I was first diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, otherwise known as GAD. I experienced panic attacks, which felt like the world was kind of closing in around me. I had an overwhelming sense of kind of impending doom. It was awful. I also probably experienced depression at this time, because I had quite dark thoughts, but I didn't really recognize it at the time. But in retrospect, probably was suffering from a little bit of depression too. And at the time, I kind of convinced myself the reason I was feeling so awful, the reason why I was having such kind of negative, having such a bad experience, was simply that I was homesick. So I convinced myself that if I moved back to Norfolk, everything would be fine. I moved back to Norfolk and everything was not fine. I qualified as a nurse, but although it was intense and stressful, I wasn't stimulated creatively in a way that excited me. I had some medication errors during my first literally couple of weeks of being qualified. My whole mental health absolutely crumbled. Hospital staff tried to help me, but I was, my colleagues, I was so emotional, felt like everything was going wrong. It was a terrible time, to be honest. I finally realized that nursing wasn't for me, and that all my life I'd really enjoyed writing and design. So I decided I wanted to go into marketing instead. Next slide. So it was a really difficult decision to quit nursing, but the right one, as I managed to luckily get a job in marketing, and I absolutely loved it. So I did this for a year, but while doing it for the year, I really pushed myself hard. I believe that the key to success was working hard, and every hour of the day should be spent doing something productive. So in addition to have my 9-to-5 job, it wasn't always 9 to 5, but it was probably more like 9 to 6 or more, because I just loved it, and I just wanted to carry on working, as sad as that sounds. And then I'd spend my evening at the gym, or I'd be working on my blog that I had, and Saturdays I'd volunteer in a charity shop. Basically, I was packing it all into my day, and really thought that was the way to do things, as we're kind of told. If you want to be successful, you've got to work all hours of the day and blah blah blah. But by April 2021, I was starting to notice signs of burnout. I was spending most of my weekends falling asleep. Over the following months, my fatigue got worse. I was told by my GP it was depression, but could feel it was different. It didn't feel the same as the depression I'd had before, because I loved what I was doing. But I was exhausted. I finally had to cut down on my hours at work and cut out pretty much all of my hobbies. And then finally I was diagnosed with ME/CFS, also known as chronic fatigue syndrome, in December 2021. It's also important to note that to be diagnosed with ME, there are a multitude of symptoms that have to be present with it. It's not just fatigue. I feel like there's a bit of misconception that chronic fatigue syndrome is all about fatigue. I mean, the name doesn't help, but for me, it's also kind of muscle pain, nausea, IBS type things, brain fog, issues with short-term memory. It's kind of a whole body experience. During this time, my anxiety got worse, and then I was having to call in sick to work a lot. That really had an effect on my mental health. I felt awful doing it. It would send me in a downward spiral. I'd feel so guilty for being so unreliable, and it really got to me, the process of kind of constantly letting people down. So that was a period of highs, but a big crash at the end, basically. So finally, I sadly had to quit my corporate job, this marketing job that I love doing so much, and I started doing some work at Heffel Innovation, which is a little kind of organization that kind of does business support stuff and has business sites around Norfolk. It's a practice of tuning mindfully into your thoughts and emotions, accepting them and recognizing that they are not normal parts of the human experience, and that everyone feels that way sometimes. Then giving yourself compassion by mentally speaking to yourself like a friend or a child. So you're not berating yourself, you're not criticizing or focusing on the negative, you're just being there for yourself, you're offering yourself kind words of support, acceptance and understanding, and treating yourself with care. So I worked through this booklet, which you can see on the right hand side of the screen, and I highly recommend for anyone who struggles with the concept of kind of self-care to maybe consider also getting this workbook and working through it, it's really helped me, so you might find it helpful too. But yeah, we're often told that to look after our mental health, we have to practice self-care, and it's obviously kind of a term that's bandied around a lot, but it's a broad term and it's hard to understand what it actually means a lot of the time. We also make reasons for why we can't practice self-care, such as haven't got the time, haven't got the money, or for a lot of us, it's just we feel guilty for spending time on ourselves and not for others. Like if you've got kids, if you're a carer of any kind, if you're in relationships, it's hard to kind of put yourself first. So the mindful self-compassion workbook really helped me to change my mindset, to realize that I deserve spending time on myself. It's kind of the phrases to go through stuff like I am worthy of doing things that I enjoy and that will ultimately help my mental and physical health. So before, when I had a day where I felt really fatigued with pain and nausea and brain fog, I would be consumed by guilt that I'd let my partner Elliot down because I wasn't able to work and help in the business. I felt really ashamed, I felt frustrated, and I felt like I was wasting my life just lying around, just, you know, not doing anything productive, useful. So I still experience the same problems, i.e. days where my ME gets on top of me and I still experience those symptoms. One of the reasons I am not very good at getting up in the mornings, but rather than feeling like I've let Elliot down or feeling bad that he has to get up to get the deliveries or whatever, I now give myself compassion for feeling unwell and tell myself I'm worthy and deserve a day or a morning to rest. I would even argue that allowing ourselves to rest is in fact very productive, as our bodies and mind need downtime in order to perform better during our kind of on work days. So thankfully, obviously now mental health is a much more widely discussed topic, which is great. There's lots of resources out there to help your mental well-being. Sadly, though, there's not much acute support for people who are suffering from seriously poor health or mental health, such as talking therapies, very expensive. And I know that definitely in our area of Norfolk, they're unavailable on the NHS. I think a lot of us can agree that's obviously a huge problem, that the kind of acute mental health care is not available. But what is very much available is advice on how to help your mental health from dive bombing in the first place, i.e. taking preventative action. So I will always recommend anyone who has mental illness to speak to their GP and seek therapy from a qualified professional. But what I really wished I'd been better at all those years ago when I first started developing mental health problems was acting before it got worse, when I felt better. So even if you feel that your mental health is in a really good place at the moment, it's absolutely essential you do really take care of yourself to ensure you don't burn out and start to suffer mentally and physically. So after all, you know, we're all human, and even the most resilient of us can be affected with adverse mental health. So thinking about it also in a kind of business context, burning yourself out and not being mentally or physically at your best is completely unsustainable for your business. That's why there's such a strong business case for ensuring business owners and employees ensure they look out for their mental health and carve out time every day to do activities which allow them to switch off from work and focus on their mental well-being. Really, it should be, you know, like our staff or managers or owners, you know, as a resource, you know, should be really kind of thought or placed at the forefront of like business planning, because without owners, staff, managers, whoever, there isn't really a business, is there? So my tips. So my first tip is to set values, not goals. So ACT and self-compassion teaches us to live by our core values rather than our goals. So in essence, goals are destinations that we set ourselves, then strive to achieve. Values, on the other hand, are directions which are still applicable even after we achieve our goals. So your goal might be, for example, to visit a specific country next year, like America, but your core value is travel and adventure. So even after you achieve your goal of visiting America, for example, your core value remains the same because it's infinite. It isn't a box to tick. Instead, it's something that you are and continually live by. So what's hugely helped my mental health is to ensure I'm living according to my values every single day. So for example, what I value and know makes me feel good is spending time in nature, spending time with my friends, family and cat, being creative, plus travel and adventure. Therefore, in my day, or at least each week, I will try and plan things in that help me to fulfill these things I love to do. I'll book in the evening, see my family and friends, for example. I'll sit in my garden or try and go to the woods to enjoy nature, maybe explore a new part of Norwich to fulfill where I live, to fulfill my desire for travel and adventure, or enjoy creative pursuits like things I like are like sewing, painting or knitting. Obviously, my values are probably completely different to yours. For example, yours might be to be surrounded by beauty. Other ones are like to spend time helping others, to focus on social justice, etc. You know, spend time with your kids. There's obviously many core values that could apply to you. But whatever your core values are, you want to try and find ways to fit them into your week, even if it's just doing an activity for 5 minutes a day. Also, really important to remind yourself while running a business is why you are doing it. Why are you running your business? Like, why are you working yourself ragged? If it's to make money, what do you want the money for? If it's to surround yourself with beautiful objects, and that's fine, and there's absolutely no shame in it, you know, maybe you're really motivated by having like a really lovely car and having a lovely home and those kind of things. Like, you know, don't feel guilty for that. That's absolutely fine. If it's to have some more flexibility in your life, ask yourself why that's important to you. Maybe it's because you'd like to spend more time with friends and family. But by remembering why we're working so hard, it helps remind us what our core values are and make time to live by these core values. So I've got a few more other tips, and they come from Dr. Rangan Chatterjee's book, The 4-Pillar Plan, which is another recommendation I have in terms of books to read or a podcast to listen to, which kind of motivates you, I guess, to really look after your health and physical well-being and to learn some things. So first one is relaxation. So as I've already spoken about, it's really easy to get caught up in work and prioritize your business or job above everything else. But humans are obviously not made to be on alert all the time. We know it's terrible for our mental and physical health to be kind of in a stress mode all the time. Instead, we should try and balance our time working with a bit of me time. I'm still not great at doing this, I'll admit. I'm actually still very bad at it, but compared to how I was, I'm much better, and I think that's the thing that's made the difference. But what I have found really helps me is adding these kind of like me time activities to my daily to-do list. So in addition to my list, you know, my to-do list, which might be like reply to emails, post stories on, you know, Instagram, add new photos to the website, you know, those kind of things, work related things. I'll also make sure I have on my to-do list stuff like do a guided meditation, you know, do an evening stretch, you know, do some movement in the day, go for a walk, whatever. I also like reading, as it helps me to switch off from work and also remove myself from screens, because we know that screen-free time is really important. Again, we're not really meant to be in front of screens all day, you know, just kind of stationary and just, yeah, not good. It's also important to set yourself boundaries, especially important for those of us who are people pleasers. I'm definitely a people pleaser, and a lot of the time we go out of our way to make other people happy, even if it's a detriment to ourselves. So I'm definitely not always good at it, but I'll try and set myself a time to finish work and try to prevent working outside of that time boundary, even if I'm asked to by someone else. I also try and have days off, and I'm doing as little work as possible. I know today is a bit different, but you know, flexibility is key. But having rough time in your week where you know that you should be resting, not working, is important. Prioritizing is obviously key to this. If it's absolutely not essential or urgent work to complete, just try your best, just do not do it. Your business or colleagues, etc., shouldn't be the controllers of your life. You deserve more than that, and it is absolutely fine to say no and protect your free time. It's really hard, I think, when you're running a business to have this kind of like protected free time, because you're always telling yourself, well, you know, if I don't do this, then I'm not going to make, you know, I don't know, you're going to lose control of the business somehow. Things are going to go wrong. You're not going to make money. You're not going to be able to pay your bills. It's really, really stressful. But again, like I was saying, if you don't take this time to really kind of relax and de-stress and concentrate on yourself, not yourself within your business, then it might become unsustainable, your business anyway, because you might burn yourself out. So I would argue that it's essential. Another tip I have for perfectionists like me, or as my therapist calls us, people with unrelenting standards, is to follow the Pareto principle. So I don't know if you've heard of this perhaps before, but the Pareto principle states that for many outcomes, roughly 80% of consequences come from 20% of causes. So what I take from this is I'll try and aim for kind of 80% perfection rather than the 100% that I would usually go for. For example, I'm currently working on a website with my partner Elliot for our business, and usually in the past I would very much be doing the tiny little fiddly, tiny small details that no one really noticed and really worrying about those and making sure they're perfect. Now I'm not interested. It's probably not going to impact sales. It's not going to impact people's experience of the website. There's no point wasting my time, my energy, my, you know, stress levels on it. So yeah, I try and go with, it's also called the 80-20 rule. So yeah, you want 80% of consequences come from 20% of causes. I'm not very good at explaining it, but look it up and you'll get a better idea. Another tip to help you not get too dragged into work is to use a Pomodoro timer. So I use an app called Focus Plant, and essentially it kind of just like sets a timer for 25 minutes and then notifies me when I have to have a break for 5 minutes. Kind of helps to remind you to keep having breaks, and to, you know, drag yourself out of work so you can be a little bit mindful of what's going on around you, because I am personally very typical at getting a bit too sucked into things. So my other tip is to surround yourself, if you can, with kind of community. So I kind of alluded to this earlier, but it's really important to carve out time for yourself to socialize. This might be seeing family, or maybe even going to the pub and being around other people. I know we get a lot of customers in who maybe don't have family to visit or see, don't have necessarily like a group of friends to hang out with. or, you know, just friends to be around. So a lot of the time they come to the pub just to kind of get out the house, to be around other people, to have a chat with us, that kind of thing. And I think it's really important. It's thought that people who have a good sense of community around them live longer and healthier lives compared to people who feel isolated and lonely. It's talked about a lot in the context of mental health. Talked about a lot in the context of mental health is talking about your feelings with someone. This is hugely helpful, and I really feel for people who don't have that person they can really open up to. We also might not want to open up to people because we're worried about how it affect our loved ones, you know, if we're honest and talk about how we're feeling. But I personally think honest communication in all your relationships is best for the long term. During my darkest times with depression and anxiety, I found writing in my journal really helpful. Not necessarily every day, but just during times when I was feeling particularly vulnerable, but helpless. The act of getting some of those thoughts down felt like a proactive way of starting to come to terms with my life and make some changes in my routine. So yeah, perhaps if you haven't got that particular person you're able to talk to, if you can't or don't want to go to therapy, a journal might be a good way to just get some of those feelings out. My final tip is about physical health. So we now know that our physical and mental health is pretty much entwined together. My experience has definitely taught me that when my mental health suffers, so does my physical health, which then causes my mental health to suffer even more. It's a constantly rotating circle, and our physical and mental health are essentially somewhat the same in a way. I think the kind of progressive medicine is starting to realize this more and more. Because of this, we can't really talk about mental health without mentioning all the ways to look after our physical health. So some general things to think about. This is obviously, all of this is like a topic that we could talk about, you know, for hours and hours. Obviously it's huge, isn't it? Kind of mental and physical well-being. But just a couple of things that I found helpful is eating a balanced diet with plenty of veg and sources of protein and as little ultra-processed food as possible. If I stray from this rule, I try not to beat myself up about it. Try and show myself self-compassion, because it's not always possible to eat a low processed diet, you know, when you're busy and you just need to grab something, or you haven't got the energy to cook. Many reasons for it, but where possible, I do my best to try and at least really be mindful of what I'm eating. Moving regularly is also obviously really important. Doing stretching, cardio, like HIIT sessions are good. I used to do them before I got ME. Can't anymore, sadly, but I'm hoping one day I'll work my way back up to doing some HIIT sessions. Strength exercises are really great too. And I think key to this is, if you don't already exercise, is to start small and start building up. That's something I'm doing. Starting tiny. I've been doing like 5 lunges a day or something, you know, it's not much, and then I'm each week slowly trying to build up a little bit more. And yeah, good place to start. And finally, getting quality sleep, having a bedtime routine, limiting our devices in the bedroom, and ensuring we get enough sunlight in the morning are all ways to kind of help improve your quality of sleep. And as I mentioned, all of this stuff is discussed in Dr. Rongan's book that I mentioned earlier, which I really love, and I browse for a lot. I showed it to my parents the other day and I was like, this is my Bible. this is so good. But yeah, I definitely recommend it. Here are some of my other recommendations. Oh, sorry, that graphic at the bottom's gone a bit funny with my guided meditation. But yeah, I really recommend these books, Dr. Rongan's podcast, and if you want to have a go at guided meditation, there's some options there. The Calm app you have to pay for, but Tara Back, I think, on Spotify, she does a lot of kind of self-compassion type things, which is really good, and yeah, I find personally very helpful. So yeah, in summary, because I know that was a lot. So yeah, I would say the main things that have helped me are to treat myself with self-compassion, to live or try to live my life by my core values, just by fitting in 5 minutes a day of drawing or sitting in the garden for 5 minutes. They all kind of work towards living by my core values. Taking time to do enjoyable things outside of work, like I was saying, and looking after my physical health. The main thing to do is to do this before it's too late, in my opinion. Obviously, what different people are predisposed to different things. So, you know, obviously, if you do find yourself during a period of mental health difficulties, obviously there's no guilt. You know, you shouldn't have any guilt for that, because it happens to so many of us. But by looking after our mental health from the outset, not waiting until it suffers, then trying to change it, and, you know, enact new behaviours and routines, I think it's really important. And yeah, protect yourself from burnout if you can. It's, you know, it's really important to all aspects of your life, but also it's really important for your business. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, I'd be very interested to hear any questions or you know, just general thoughts from you guys. I will try and stop sharing my screen. Cool. Oh, sorry, Pete, I can't hear you.
Sorry, I think I must have muted myself. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can now.
Good, yeah. Right. As I said, it was very, very inspiring. I really enjoyed that. I found that really, really fascinating about your journey there. I'm just going to say I'll go first because it's my show, so I get to ask questions first of all. But your work ethic is obviously pretty strong. Has it all? Well, two questions really. Has it always been like that? Did you have that same when you were at school, when you were young? Did you always have that strong work ethic? And do you think that's actually part of the problem, having a really strong work ethic sometimes?
Yes, yes. Yeah. Yeah, when I was growing up, I was always, yeah, very much like striving to do the best I possibly could. The funny thing is my parents were always kind of like, they were not pushy parents in any way. They were kind of always like, you know, just as long as you try your best, that's all you can ask, you know, all we can ask for, and just kind of be happy and blah blah blah. Don't really care how you do academically or anything like that. But I don't know, I always, yeah, like really push myself to the extreme. And yeah, I definitely think that that's a lot of my problem, where a lot of my problems have stemmed for 100%. Yeah, just pushing myself just too far beyond where I can actually manage it. But I think that's definitely also a bit of a problem with society at the moment. You know, we're just always
in that sort of American kind of style work ethic of, like, you know, pushing yourself, you know, 24/7 is still quite prevalent, isn't it?
Definitely, which is why I think it's important to keep questioning yourself, like, why are you doing that? What are you trying to achieve from that? You know, if it is just to kind of make a load of money, then, you know what, is it worth it? Is it worth like ruining your health? To me, it's not, but yeah. No. So yeah, I do think it's definitely like a personal problem, but I do think that there's it's easy to fall into that trap with like all the kind of external factors in the world, like, you know, on Instagram, you know, you see these like girl boss or whatever, kind of like trying to fit everything, you know, have it all and fit everything into their lives, and you think that you can do that. You just have to, you know, you just have to work really hard to do it. But yeah, it's definitely
don't get me started on social media. We haven't got long enough. But anyway, yeah. Has anyone got any questions they want to ask Emily while we're here, or either put them in the chat or just jump in and ask? Oh, right, from Ian. Hang on a sec. Right, Ian says, I'm still recovering from COVID, hence why I'm muted. Oh, sorry to hear that, Ian. Hope you're feeling a bit better. So I've had to take a few days out from work recently. Do you have any tips from staying motivated and focused when you have an important, urgent task stacking up? Yes, that's a good question.
Yeah, hi, Ian. Yeah, again, like Pete said, really sorry to hear that you're struggling. I'll have a think, because yeah, I guess that's slightly different to, I guess, what has always traditionally motivated me is like fear. Or what, I'm not saying this is the bad thing. I think a lot of us probably would be motivated by kind of fear of things going wrong, not doing those things. But I think it's important to give yourself a lot of compassion, self-compassion, to try and acknowledge that fear, but not let it get on top of you. I would say probably just trying to start small, or just think, you know, I'm gonna just get some work done for 10 minutes, or, you know, in terms of I've definitely had those days where, yeah, I haven't been able to get any of the really important and urgent work done, but what I've told myself is just to do the very like smallest amount I can kind of do, just to sit down in front of my laptop and start doing that work, and just seeing if it can snowball into a little bit more than I wanted. Also, I definitely recommend doing it in small blocks throughout the day, if you're able to, rather than kind of like overdoing it for however long and then making yourself feel worse. If you can kind of plan out, it's, well, in kind of chronic fatigue ME terms, it's called pacing, which I would definitely look up more about. But yeah, just trying to do little bits and in small blocks, and just tell yourself, okay, I'm going to set a timer for 20 minutes or whatever, and just get this little bit of work done. It makes everything feel a lot less overwhelming and kind of less terrifying to get back into. And I find it motivates. So hopefully that's helpful.
Thank you. Rachel, you got your hand up. Did you have a question?
I just wanted to add to what Emily said, and it's something I definitely use what Emily said, where you start with something small and hope that it will, like, maybe it will snowball, and that will be really nice if you can then chain things off of that. But my partner and I often also, and it depends on your mood, but we often also eat the frog by starting with the thing we really don't want to do and getting it out of the way. And the sense of achievement you get from eating the frog often makes you feel a lot like you can do the easy things now because you've done the hardest thing. It depends on the scale, I suppose, of that hard thing. But usually the frogs that I don't like to eat, to keep the analogy going, are sending slightly tricky emails. So it's not like they're big jobs, they're just awkward jobs, and I hate all the awkwardness. So I just like, right, I'm just gonna do that, and then if I don't do anything else, at least that's not hanging over me, because that's the thing I really don't want to do. So let's just get that done. But yeah, it depends on your mood. Sometimes you need to start with something that you enjoy, that's really nice, and that will hopefully ease you in. But yeah, that helps me sometimes.
Thanks, Rachel. I haven't heard that expression, eating the frog, before. I'm not familiar with that.
I like that. Yeah,
I just had to Google it. I don't even know where it comes from.
Just come back from France. It probably has a different meaning over there. I expect. It's probably not such a bad thing over there. I don't know.
Yeah,
they might have a different expression.
What is your business, Rachel? Can you tell us a bit about your business, just out of interest?
I actually run a business up the road from Emily, which is how I know her and how I
okay.
found out about her.
Yeah, we're kind of neighbours-ish.
Oh,
Neighbours on the street.
I
Yeah.
run a shop just up the road, so
okay.
we're actually having a really busy, not busy in terms of kind of customers, but we've got some projects we're working on, and it's a really stressful time. So this has been a really valuable session to like hear from Emily with all her kind of tips and techniques. Has been really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. I was going to ask, do you think it's actually in some ways, do you think it's worse, easier being self-employed than an employee with these issues? I mean, I suppose it depends on your employer, doesn't it? But I'm just wondering if, I mean, you have some control, don't you, when you're self-employed, which you probably don't feel that you have when you're an employee sometimes.
Yeah, I've always found that like the grass is greener the other side, because when I was employed, I was like, oh, it'd be so easy if you were self-employed, because then I could just, you know, I could be so flexible, and if I didn't feel like working, I wouldn't have to, and all these things. And now I am self-employed, I'm kind of like, oh, wouldn't it be lovely to be employed by someone?
Yeah,
and then
okay. Fair
but
enough.
yeah, so I do think there's like benefits to both. Obviously, maybe you've probably got more of a support system potentially if you are employed, you know, if you've got like more of a well, yeah, I know exactly. I guess it depends what kind of organization you work for, if you might have a HR person, or if, you know, you've got some potential more sick leave benefits or whatever. But obviously when you're self-employed, you haven't got those kind of advantages. You just kind of got to get on and get the work done, otherwise you might not be able to pay the bills or whatever, which is terrifying, obviously. Obviously I definitely couldn't have done like open the pub or open any business like on my own. Like, I'm hugely grateful I had like a partner to do it with, so I really feel for people who are pretty much like doing it all on their own. That's hard.
Yeah, that is. Sorry, Julie, you got your hand up. You're on mute.
Yeah, hi Pete, and Emily, hello again. Thank you for being so honest about such a tricky subject in a way, but it's not tricky because everybody suffers from ill health, whether it's mental, physical, all of the time. But I've actually had a sort of similar journey to you, actually, to do with well-being, whether it's physical and mental, and the two being intertwined. So I actually have done the CBT therapy, which has been quite useful, but I can see where this also comes in and is very very good, and gets you to sort of look at yourself and find answers, which is great. But one thing that I did also find is that going through the journey as a manager myself, when other people within the team that I was managing maybe were starting to fall for whatever reason, I was able to spot it, or I was able to sort of have the compassion or have the conversation, which actually felt really, really empowering and useful. Not that my journey would be their journey, but just to recognize if something was going a little bit awry, and just to stop and, as I say, sort of ask the question with an employee. But the other thing that was quite amazing at one point, because this was quite a long time ago for me, when I sort of went in to work to sort of raise the flag to say everything's going wrong, and I really appreciate what you say about trying to sort of, what's the word, avert it before it happens. But like yourself, being quite young when it did happen, you don't even read the sign, you don't recognize the signs because you're just doing the best you can. So that's probably why we don't recognize the signs, and then suddenly, whoops, the rugs pull from under our feet. But the person who was my manager at that time, going to talk to them, they were so scared of what I was talking about that that they couldn't help me at all. So but what am I saying here? But that, again, that gave me a little bit of a sense of empowerment, because I thought, well, I'm not ashamed of how I feel. There are reasons why I feel this way, and I just need to understand the reasons and then flip it around and maybe try and do something about that. But yeah, so for me, I found it hard though it was at that time, a really valuable lesson for me as a person and going forward, and also me as an employee and as a manager. So that's what I would say, which I think echoes everything that you've said to us, and yeah, and just sort of underpins all those different points. So thank you, Emily.
Yeah, no, it sounds like your employees in the past have been lucky to have you, you know, as that manager.
I wouldn't go that far. No, you're right.
You know,
yes,
not everyone would, you know, be able to recognize those signs, or maybe if they do, just like actually act on them.
I can assure you, because Julie was my boss when I started, I can assure you'd be lucky to have her as a boss. I can totally assure you of that.
Thank you.
Sorry, Rachel, you got your hand up again.
Sorry, I just unmute myself. I just wanted to ask actually a question around managing staff, because we're just about to hire our first staff member to work with us, because so far it's just been me and my partner, and I'm utterly terrified. Like you said, obviously it was a really great benefit having people like working for you and with you, but was there anything that you were nervous about, and like I don't know, were you able to overcome your nerves or anxieties about that, if you had any?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I've again been really lucky because Elliot has been like in management roles before. He's like managed a big team, and so I've definitely kind of like let him lead the way sort of thing. But yeah, it's really scary. Like it's really scary to obviously have that kind of like financial pressure, that now it's not just me who needs to, you know, make sure that I can, yeah, you know, obviously have enough money for yourself. You've got to obviously like look after this other person financially. And yeah, it's scary in terms of like the trust. Obviously a lot of trust needs to go into it, that you're kind of like handing off your baby onto the first time that we let Izzy, who is the person we hired, it literally felt like we were saying goodbye to like a child, and like the babysitter was there to look after them. But I think it's definitely helps to be honest with your communication. You know, I think it's okay to obviously want to act professionally and feel like reassure them that you have got your best together and you know what you're doing. But I think it's also okay to be honest and be like, you know, this is quite new to us, but you know, if you've got any like comments or, you know, feedback for us, like we want to hear it. I think that's definitely something that me and Elliot believe in a lot, is just making sure that your employee feels part of the organization and there's enough like open dialogue for them to just come and speak to you with like any problems or any like improvements they can see, you know, or you know, just making sure that they feel kind of like empowered to do that.
Do you think your people pleasing is an issue with employing staff, Emily, though? Do you think it could be an issue?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I really have to try and pull back a little bit in terms of I remember one of the first nights I was there when Izzy was working, and I was like wanting to help. I was like wanting to clear up and like do all these things, like get back behind the bar, and Ellie was like, no, because that's kind of, I saw it as, oh, I'm helping. I'm, you know, I just don't want them to think that I'm like lazy and like work million or you know, or I didn't want I don't know, I just wanted to help. But yeah, Elliot, you know, had to pull me aside. It was like, Emily, like this is also a little bit insulting for Izzy, because you're kind of, it's almost like you're saying, oh, you can't manage this job on your own, I need to help you, I need to step in. So since then I definitely have learned to step back a little bit, and I'm definitely still a bit of a people pleaser, but I try my best not to overdo it to the point where it would be strange for your employer to go out of their way, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think I know you.
I feel like I'm really worried that like they'll have these high expectations about the job being like cool or fun, and then it'll be like, oh no, it's actually, there'll be like maybe like sometimes an hour when no one comes in and you'll just be sat there like, this is great, like this is not what I expected.
Yeah, no, definitely. We had that too with Izzy, and yeah, so we're trying to kind of encourage them to like maybe do a little bit of other things that they can be doing while so stuff like taking some photos and sending them to me for social media, or I don't know, checking some emails or whatever. But yeah, no, I totally get that. I know Izzy, sometimes we're in a really kind of open place now where they'll be like, oh, don't leave, I want company. and I literally, like the other day I passed them a book and I was like, that's your entertainment, we're going. But but yeah, I know what you mean. You want it to be like how you kind of sold it to them with being, yeah, like this really fun place, but obviously it's not always like that. But I think it's okay to keep them occupied with other things, and it helps you out too, doesn't it? Give them a bit of work. A bit more work.
Yeah, that's true.
I want to ask a bit more about doing the nursing. I mean, I didn't realise you'd done nursing. I mean, what was your motivation for that? Did you sort of think at the time it was a mistake, or was the wrong thing, or don't you regard it as a mistake, just part of the learning process?
Yeah, I pretty much, again, kind of fell into this thing at the time. There was a lot of like talk among my friends and stuff, or like teenagers in general at the time, of like, don't want to work in an office, it's not cool to work in an office, or you don't want to get chained to a desk all day. Also, there's definitely a big factor in, I wanted to help people. I wanted to do something like that. I was also like really excited, weirdly, for the really hard work. I was like, yeah, doing some graft, and like, it's a really like honest profession, and it's like it's kind of it is well respected, not by everyone, i.e. always the government, but it is a well respected profession. And maybe there was a little bit of family pressure, but yeah, it was only until that third year that I realized it'd been a bit of a mistake. But I do think I definitely wouldn't be the person I am today if I hadn't have done it. And also, yeah, I think it was like, so yeah, it wasn't really a mistake. It was just a difficult period, and I did learn a lot from it. And I did like it. I was very shy actually before I did nursing, and it completely cured me of that, for instance. So yeah.
Did you get much help and support from the university, or were they?
To be fair, the university itself was pretty good. Like at the time, I did get some like free sessions with a therapist and stuff like that. The nursing side of the university, as in the tutors and lecturers and stuff, not the best. But I mean, they were good. But it took me to have literally a breakdown in basically a patient's room for them to actually properly help me. So that wasn't so good. But yeah, I think it's good that I think there's some. I know, for example, at the UEA, I think they're really hot on making sure that there are like mental health kind of facilities for students. I know they even have like a mental health dog that for example, that like for canine therapy and stuff like that. But no, I think in some ways my university was good, in some ways they weren't very good.
Okay, is there any more questions while we have Emily here?
I'm afraid I'm going to have to go and make my dinner. So I'm going to
that's absolutely fine, Rachel. Yeah, don't worry.
Thank you very much, Emily, and thanks to the BOPC for hosting as well. It's been really valuable.
You're more than welcome, Rachel. We'll be in touch. And what we do, we'll send you an online feedback form, if that's okay. If you wouldn't mind just filling that in. And also, if you want to access the recording or Emily's slides, I'm sure she'll forward it on to us, okay?
Lovely. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
See you soon, Emily.
Bye. See you.
Okay. Well, I think that brings us to sort of natural conclusion. I was just thinking, actually, I mean, in terms of support for businesses, I mean, what support is there for small businesses in a place like Norwich? Is there something, I suppose networking, but it's not quite the same, is it? And something a bit more.
Well, I know the Federation of Small Businesses.
Yeah.
Some
they do some stuff, but you have to pay to join them, don't you? So it'd be nice to have something.
That's the thing. That's the thing. Yeah,
it'd be nice to have some sort of network for small businesses for this, really. But just thinking off the top of my head. But anyway. Yeah. Okay, well, thanks very much to everyone for coming. It was a fantastic session. We really appreciate it. And thank you again to Emily, who's been such a fantastic host here, talking about her mental health journey in running the pub.